If you want to live a long, healthy life, you need to understand this. Blood sugar and insulin might be the most dangerous things you're ignoring right now. This is personal for me. Almost 40% of people have prediabetes, and most don't even know it. People with prediabetes don't just risk getting diabetes, they have a much higher chance of dying early from any cause. I know that sounds scary, but by the end of this, you'll understand what's happening in your body and what simple actions can help. More importantly, you'll understand why these changes matter so much. I believe doctors aren't being completely honest with you. Our modern lifestyle is slowly killing us. It took another one of my family members getting diagnosed with prediabetes for me to realize I had to share this information. Four of my family members have prediabetes now. My dad already had a heart attack, and high blood sugar probably caused it. I don't want anyone in my family dying too young. I want us all healthy and happy in our 90s. I know that's a big goal. I know it might seem unrealistic, but there's no harm in trying, and it starts with being honest about what's really happening. Before we start, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Just drop your state or city in the comments below. It helps us feel like one community here, learning together and supporting one another. And if you have any natural health tips of your own, feel free to share those too. Someone else might really benefit from hearing what's worked for you. What actually happens in your body? My name's Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I've worked in emergency medicine for 10 years. I've watched the patterns, who lives healthy into their 80s and 90s and who doesn't. I see people every single day who ignored the warning signs, and I see the consequences. What I've learned is this: living well isn't about luck or genes for most people. It's about understanding what's happening inside your body right now, today, because of choices you made yesterday and the day before that. I want to give you the insights I've gained over these years. Hopefully, I can teach you something that will genuinely help you and your family. Here's what frustrates me most. I've tried explaining to each family member why prediabetes is so serious, but for some reason it just doesn't seem to land. It doesn't sink in. And I think I know why. We've all been brainwashed, honestly. We live in a world now where insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes have become so common that we think they're just part of getting old. We don't treat them like the crisis they actually are. We treat them like an inconvenience, like something you just manage with a pill and a few small changes to your diet. Switch from white bread to brown bread and you're sorted, right? Except that's absolutely not how it works. And the fact that this is still the advice being given shocks me. Understanding insulin resistance, let me explain what insulin resistance actually means. Because once you understand this, you'll realize why it's so serious. Every time you eat, your blood sugar goes up. This is normal. It's supposed to happen. But your body needs to bring that sugar back down to a safe level. It does this using a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin like a key. It unlocks your cells so sugar can go inside. Inside the cells, that sugar gets used for energy or stored for later. But when you eat too much processed food, too many carbs, and too much sugar, day after day, week after week, year after year, your cells start to become less responsive to insulin. They stop listening to it. They become resistant. So your body has to make more and more insulin just to do the same job. Your pancreas is working overtime, pumping out insulin, desperately trying to get your blood sugar down. For a while, it works. Your blood sugar stays normal, even though your insulin levels are sky high. The insulin is through the roof, but you don't know it because doctors usually only test blood sugar, not insulin levels. But eventually, your pancreas can't keep up. It can't make enough insulin to overcome the resistance. That's when your blood sugar starts rising. That's when you get diagnosed with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. But here's the critical part that nobody talks about. The damage starts long before the diagnosis. The diagnosis isn't the beginning of the problem. It's just when we finally notice it. It's just the moment that shows up on a blood test. By that point, you've already been damaging your body for years, probably decades. The elevated blood sugar and the sky-high insulin levels have been quietly destroying your body while you thought everything was fine. Why this is so serious? I need to be really clear about why this matters so much. Many people hear prediabetes and think, okay, my blood sugar's a bit high, but I feel fine, so it's probably not that serious. But the truth is, by the time you feel sick, it's often too late. The damage is already done. You can't feel the damage happening. That's what makes it so dangerous. High blood sugar and high insulin levels damage your blood vessels. They cause inflammation. They cause something called oxidative stress, which is like rust forming inside your body. Here's what happens. They damage your arteries. They make your arteries stiff and narrow. This leads to heart attacks and strokes. The blood vessels that supply your heart and brain get blocked or damaged. They damage your kidneys. Your kidneys have to filter all that excess sugar. Over time, this leads to kidney failure. Eventually, some people need dialysis, a machine to clean their blood because their kidneys can't do it anymore. They damage the tiny blood vessels in your eyes. This leads to vision loss and blindness. I've seen so many people in the emergency department who've lost their sight because of diabetes. They damage your nerves. This causes something called neuropathy. You lose sensation in your feet and hands. You can't feel pain or temperature properly. Some people end up with foot ulcers that won't heal and eventually need amputations. They damage your brain. This increases your risk of dementia and memory loss. Your thinking becomes slower. You lose your independence. This isn't just about managing blood sugar with medication. This is about preventing all these devastating complications that most of us just think is part of getting old. But it's not part of normal aging. It's the result of years of high blood sugar and insulin damaging your body. This is about being able to live into your 80s and 90s with your health intact, with your independence, with your mind sharp, and your body still working properly. This is the difference between spending your final decades enjoying life, playing with grandchildren, traveling, doing the things you love, versus spending them in and out of hospitals, dependent on other people, dealing with one complication after another. How did this become normal? What really gets to me is how normal this has all become. We live in a world where type 2 diabetes and prediabetes are just expected. Everyone knows someone who has it. I bet most of you watching this either have a family member or friend with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, or you've been told yourself that your blood sugar is starting to creep up. Because it's so common, we've just normalized it, we've accepted it as part of getting old, but it's really not. It absolutely isn't. Humans have been around for roughly 300,000 years. Our bodies are incredible machines that evolved to handle the environment we lived in for the vast majority of our existence. Imagine stretching your arms out as wide as you possibly can. That distance represents the entire history of human existence. The last 50 or 60 years, this modern era of ultra-processed food and sitting all day, that's about the width of one fingernail at the very end. Just a tiny, tiny sliver. For almost all of that time, we were active. We walked, we moved, we hunted and gathered, we worked physically demanding jobs, and our food was real. It came from plants and animals, not from factories. It had fiber. It had nutrients. It didn't spike our blood sugar to crazy levels and then crash it back down an hour later. But then, in that tiny fingernail width of time, everything changed. We went from moving throughout the day to sitting for most of the day. We went from eating real food to eating ultra-processed products designed in labs to be addictive and profitable, not nutritious. And our bodies haven't had time to adapt. Evolution doesn't work that fast. It takes thousands and thousands of years. So now we're living in these bodies that are completely mismatched to our modern lifestyle. And the result is an epidemic of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes that we're pretending is normal. Why normal advice isn't enough. This brings me to the advice that most people get when they're told they're pre-diabetic or at risk. Switch from white bread to brown bread. Eat more whole grains. Cut back on sugar a bit. Maybe go for a walk sometimes. And look, I understand. Doctors are busy. In the NHS, they have 5 or 10 minutes with each patient. They can't sit down and explain all of this. They have to give quick, simple advice and move on to the next person. But the problem is that this advice fundamentally misses the point. Switching from white bread to brown bread isn't going to reverse insulin resistance. Both of them spike your blood sugar. Yes, brown bread might be a tiny bit better because it has slightly more fiber, but it's still refined carbohydrates that drive up your insulin levels. It's still ultra-processed. It's still not real food. And this idea that this tiny change is going to undo decades of damage, it's just wishful thinking. What actually needs to happen is a complete change in your lifestyle. I know that sounds extreme. I know it sounds overwhelming, but that's because the problem is extreme. You can't make tiny adjustments around the edges and expect to see real change. You need to fundamentally rethink what you eat, and how you move throughout the day. What actually works? Food. So what does this look like in real life? Let's start with breakfast, because this is where most people go wrong right from the start of the day. The typical Western breakfast is toast, cereal, granola, pastries, fruit juice, all carbs. All of them spike your blood sugar and insulin within minutes of waking up. Then you're on a blood sugar roller coaster for the rest of the day. You're constantly hungry, constantly craving more carbs, never feeling satisfied, always thinking about food. Instead, breakfast needs to be built around protein and fat. Eggs, Greek yogurt, nuts, seeds, avocado, maybe some smoked salmon. These foods keep your blood sugar stable. They keep you full for hours, and they don't trigger that insulin spike that sets you up for failure for the rest of the day. A really easy breakfast is an omelet with some vegetables or salad and some cheese. That's perfect for your breakfast and for your blood sugar. You can add mushrooms, tomatoes, spinach, broccoli, whatever vegetables you like. Then there's lunch. For most people, lunch is a sandwich from the shop or maybe a meal deal or something grabbed on the go. Here's the thing. If you're buying lunch from a shop, it's almost certainly ultra processed. It's designed to be cheap, convenient, and shelf stable, not nutritious. They don't care about how healthy it is for you. It's going to be loaded with refined carbs, hidden sugars, and cheap oils. What you need instead is a lunch where vegetables, protein, and healthy fats come first. Think a big salad with chicken or fish, or leftovers from last night's dinner. There's nothing wrong with leftovers for lunch, or a vegetable stir fry with some meat and plenty of olive oil. And then there's dinner. This is where most people think they're doing well because they're cooking at home. But the problem is that the plate is still dominated by carbohydrates. Rice, pasta, potatoes, bread. The vegetables are just a small side dish. And the protein is almost an afterthought. You need to flip that completely. Half your plate should be non-starchy vegetables. Things like broccoli, cauliflower, green beans, peppers, salad, courgettes. A quarter should be protein, meat, fish, eggs, tofu, legumes, and the last quarter can be a small amount of carbohydrates. Ideally something like sweet potato or quinoa or legumes or whole grains that have fiber and nutrients, not just empty calories. The biggest problem, snacking. When I ask people about their diet, and my own family are absolutely guilty of this, they'll say, "Oh, we cook from scratch." Then they'll tell me all about their evening meal, the roast dinner, the curry, the pasta they made at home. And that's great, but it's also missing the point, because for most people, the majority of their calories don't come from their main meals at all. They come from snacking. Biscuits with tea, crisps mid-afternoon, cereal bars that look healthy but are basically just sugar, fruit juice, flavored yogurts, smoothies, crackers, toast, just to keep you going. All of these are refined carbohydrates. All spike your blood sugar and insulin. And crucially, none of them actually fill you up. So you end up in this constant cycle, eating, spiking, crashing, then reaching for more food an hour later. You never feel properly satisfied. What most people don't realize is that they'd be far better off eating larger, more substantial meals that genuinely satisfy them, and then not needing to snack at all. For example, a big breakfast of an omelet with 3 eggs, some cheese, some spinach, and some broccoli. Most people would struggle to finish that because it's quite big. It really fills you up. But if you do finish it, you're full for hours. You're not thinking about food mid-morning. You don't need a snack. Then lunch could be a large salad with a proper protein source, like a chicken breast, some fish, or even falafel. Add some grains, olive oil, tomatoes, cucumber, and something fermented like kimchi or sauerkraut. That combination of protein, fiber, fat, and volume keeps you full right through until dinner. And then dinner becomes just that, dinner. Not the moment where you finally stop being hungry after grazing all day. Now, I'm under no illusion here. The foods I've just described are not what most people are used to eating. We've been conditioned to Western breakfasts, Western snacks, and carbohydrate-heavy plates. Trying to get my own parents to eat like this? It would never happen. I have to be honest. And that's exactly why this is such a big issue. This is a huge systemic problem. For many people, the level of change required feels overwhelming, but food is only half of the equation. Movement matters just as much. The other half is movement, and this is where most people really struggle to understand what I'm saying. Many people will say to me, "But I go to the gym 3 times a week, I'm active." And that's great, I'm genuinely glad you're doing that. But here's the problem. If you go to the gym for an hour in the morning and then sit down for the next 10 or 12 hours, you're still sedentary. Your body needs to move throughout the day, not just in one concentrated burst. There's really good science behind this. When you eat, your blood sugar rises. That sugar needs somewhere to go. It can either get burned as fuel by your muscles, or it can get stored as fat. If you're sitting still, your muscles aren't demanding fuel. They're not working, so the sugar gets stored as fat. But if you walk after you eat, even just for 10 or 15 minutes, your muscles start pulling that sugar out of your bloodstream to use as energy. Your blood sugar drops, your insulin levels drop, and you avoid that whole cycle of storage and insulin resistance. This is why traditional cultures that don't have high rates of diabetes tend to move constantly throughout the day. They're not doing intense workouts, they're not going to the gym, they're just walking, standing, doing physical tasks, gardening, cleaning, walking to the shops. Their bodies are constantly using sugar as fuel instead of storing it. And we've lost that. We've engineered movement out of our lives, and we're paying the price. Why is this so hard? So, why is this so difficult to fix? Let me be honest with you. Part of the reason this is so difficult is that modern life has quietly removed movement from almost everything we do. We work on laptops, we sit through video calls, we work from home, we order food to our door, we message friends on WhatsApp, we video call our family, we shop online, we bank online, we stream our entertainment. Technology has been incredible in so many ways, but it's also made it possible to live almost your entire life without moving at all. You could quite literally stay in one room all day, barely stand up, barely walk, and still function perfectly well in modern society. You can work, socialize, shop, entertain yourself, all without moving. And that matters because our bodies were never designed for that level of inactivity, especially when it's layered on top of constant food availability. Then you add in the food environment, and this is where things really start to fall apart. When you walk into a supermarket, the vast majority of what's on the shelves is ultra processed. The real food, the fresh vegetables, meat, fish, it's expensive. There's no denying this. In my experience, cooking a proper meal from scratch with fresh ingredients costs almost 3 or 4 times as much as buying the cheapest ultra processed alternative. I've spent a long time calculating this over a few weeks. And when people are struggling financially, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, of course they're going to choose the cheaper option. I completely understand that. But the tragedy is that nobody is being honest about the long-term cost. Yes, ultra processed food is cheaper today, but the cost to your health over the next 10, 20, 30 years is enormous. The cost of time off work, the cost of medications, the cost of hospital visits, the cost of losing your energy, your independence, your quality of life. That far outweighs the money saved on cheap food. We're making a terrible trade-off without even realizing it. And then there's the final piece. These foods aren't just cheap, they're engineered. Ultra-processed foods are designed to be addictive. They hit that precise combination of sugar, fat, and salt that makes your brain literally light up and crave more. They override your natural fullness signal, so you keep eating even when you're not hungry. And they're marketed to us constantly, everywhere we look. So we're not just fighting our own habits, we're fighting an entire system that profits from keeping us sedentary, keeping us overfed, and keeping us metabolically unwell. What you should do today. So what do you actually do with all this information? Because I don't want this to just be another video that makes you anxious or worried, and then you forget about it in a week. I want you to take action. And here's the good news. Insulin resistance is reversible. Your body wants to heal, you just have to give it the right conditions. Your cells want to respond to insulin properly again. You just need to stop overwhelming them. The key changes come down to 2 things: what you eat and how you move. For food, build your meals around protein, healthy fats, and vegetables, not carbohydrates. Make vegetables half your plate. Make protein a quarter. Keep carbs small. Stop snacking between meals. Eat bigger, more satisfying meals instead. Cut out the ultra-processed foods as much as you can. Cook from scratch when possible. For movement, walk after you eat, even just 10-15 minutes. This is one of the most powerful things you can do. It pulls sugar into your muscles instead of storing it as fat. Find ways to move throughout your day, not just in one gym session. Stand up regularly, take the stairs, walk to the shops instead of driving, garden, clean, just move more. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's about making better choices most of the time and understanding why those choices matter. Because the stakes are genuinely high. This is your health. This is your future. This is the difference between living well and living sick. This is the difference between independence and dependence. This is the difference between enjoying your grandchildren and watching life from a hospital bed. And you deserve to know the truth about what's happening in your body and what you can do about it. Start today. Start with one meal. Start with one walk. Just start. Your body will thank you.